Story 1. The Mirror Convoy. The 18-wheeler behind me had been following my exact movements for 47 miles, and when I tapped my brakes 3 times, it tapped back 3 times instantly. Not after seeing my lights. Simultaneously. Like it knew what I was going to do before my foot touched the pedal. I watched in my side mirror as it matched my lane change before I even turned the wheel. And that's when I noticed the driver looked exactly like me. My name is Robert Hayes, and I'd been hauling refrigerated pharmaceuticals across I-80 through Nebraska for 11 years without incident. March 19, 2023 started as a routine run from Omaha to Salt Lake City, leaving at 2:47 a.m. to beat traffic. The reefer unit hummed its familiar drone, my coffee was hot, and the road stretched empty under a moonless sky. Normal. Everything was completely normal until I checked my mirrors at mile marker 312 and saw my own face staring back at me from the cab of an identical Peterbilt. Not similar. Identical. Same silver paint job. Same mud splatter pattern on the fenders. Same running lights. Same dent in the driver's side door I'd gotten 2 years ago in a truck stop in Des Moines. The truck behind me was mine, down to the goddamn air freshener I could see hanging from its rearview mirror. I blinked hard, assuming fatigue hallucination. 32 hours into my 70-hour cycle, sure, but I'd driven more tired than this. When I opened my eyes, it was still there, maintaining exactly 73 feet behind me. The driver waved. I could see his face clearly despite the distance and darkness. My face. Same graying beard. Same scar above the left eyebrow from a childhood bicycle accident. He smiled, and I felt my own lips move involuntarily. I jerked the wheel right, crossing into the passing lane without signaling. The truck behind me moved simultaneously, not following, moving at the exact same moment like our vehicles were mechanically linked. My heart hammered against my ribs. I grabbed the CB radio, hands shaking enough that I nearly dropped it. "Breaker 19, this is Ghost Rider. Anybody out there?" My voice came out higher than normal. Static answered. "I got a situation here, eastbound on I-80 at mile marker 314. Anybody copy?" "Ghost Rider, this is Ghost Rider." My own voice crackled through the speaker. "I got a situation too." I dropped the radio. It swung on its coiled cord, bouncing against the dash. Through the speaker, I could hear it bouncing in the other truck too. The same metallic rhythm, perfectly synchronized. I looked in the mirror again. The other me was laughing silently, mouth open wide, head tilted back. But I could feel the laughter in my own throat, taste it on my own tongue, even though I was holding my breath. Exit 317 appeared ahead, a rest stop I'd used 100 times. I downshifted, slowing for the ramp without using my signal. The truck behind me downshifted at exactly the same moment, the same deep engine groan echoing in stereo. We took the exit together, 2 identical trucks moving in perfect unison, and pulled into the empty rest area parking lot. I stopped. It stopped. I cut my engine. Its engine died at precisely the same instant. The silence felt thick, suffocating. I stared at my mirror, watching the other me stare back. Neither of us moved for 37 seconds. I counted them, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, trying to focus on something concrete. Then the other driver's door opened. Mine opened too, my hand moving to the handle without conscious thought, muscles acting on their own. I tried to stop, to keep the door closed, but my hand kept moving. The door swung wide. I stepped down onto the pavement. So did he. We stood facing each other across 50 feet of cracked asphalt, identical in every way. Same jacket, same boots, same keys hanging from the same belt loop. The rest area lights hummed overhead, casting our dual shadows in the same direction. When wind moved my hair, his moved identically. "What are you?" I tried to ask, but no sound came out. My throat moved. My lips shaped the words, but silence. Then I heard my voice behind me from my own truck. "What are you?" The same inflection, the same fear. I spun around. Another me stood by my driver's door, wearing the same expression of confusion and terror I could feel on my own face. I touched my chest, feeling my heart racing beneath my sternum. He touched his chest at the same moment. Behind me, I heard a third voice. My voice. "What are you?" There were 4 of us now, all identical, all moving in subtle variations of the same movements. One scratched his beard. I felt an itch on my jaw. Another flexed his right hand. My fingers cramped. We were connected, some invisible network linking our nervous systems, sharing sensations and impulses across multiple bodies. When the one nearest the building stumbled, I felt vertigo. When another's breath quickened, my lungs pulled air faster. More trucks pulled into the rest area, all Peterbilts, all identical, all driven by me. They parked in a semicircle, engines cutting off in a wave of dying rumbles. Doors opened. I stepped out of each truck, multiplying with each new arrival. 10, 20. 37 copies of Robert Hayes, all staring at each other, all feeling the same cascading panic multiplied across a collective nervous system. The CB radios in all the trucks crackled simultaneously. "Ghost Rider, this is Ghost Rider, this is Ghost Rider, this is..." My voice echoed from 37 sources, overlapping, creating a chorus that sounded like breathing, like a heartbeat, like something alive and hungry. I tried to run to my truck, the original one. I thought it was the original, but 17 of me moved at the same time, colliding in the center of the parking lot. We fell together, a tangle of identical limbs, and I couldn't tell which arms were mine, which legs, which face was the real one. Every sensation multiplied. Pain in my elbow times 37. Scraped palms times 37, terror times 37, compounding, feeding back through whatever connection bound us, amplifying until my vision went white. When I could see again, I was standing, all of me. We'd separated, formed a circle, all facing inward. One of me started walking toward the center. I felt my legs moving, but I wasn't the one walking. Another me moved inward from the opposite side. Then another. We converged, and when the first 2 touched, they didn't collide. They merged, not like bodies pressing together, like water flowing into water. The edges blurred, features smearing, 2 becoming 1. The sensation felt like being pulled inside out. I screamed, and the sound came from 19 mouths as the others began merging too, walking toward the center of the circle, drawn by invisible strings. I tried to resist, feet scraping against pavement, but the pull was inexorable. When I touched another me, I felt myself dissolving and expanding simultaneously. Memories doubled. I remember driving from Omaha twice, taking 2 different routes, seeing 2 different sunrises, the pharmaceutical cargo and a load of furniture. March 19th and August 3rd. A wife named Patricia and being divorced for 6 years. Contradictions crashed together in my head, both true, both false, reality splitting and merging in impossible configurations. More of us flowed together, a growing mass of flesh that was still recognizably human but increasingly wrong. Too many eyes, all identical, all blinking in cascade patterns. Too many hands gesturing in rippling waves. I was spread across the parking lot and compressed into a singular point simultaneously, experiencing existence from 37 perspectives that were collapsing into one perspective that was somehow less than any individual consciousness. The other trucks started their engines without drivers, all of them simultaneously, a roar that shook the ground. They began driving in circles around the merged mass of me, tightening spirals, and I understood with sudden clarity that I was watching myself from inside those cabs too. I was the trucks. I was the pavement. I was the humming lights overhead. The merger hadn't created one Robert Hayes from 37. It had shattered the concept of Robert Hayes entirely, spreading my consciousness across space and matter, diluting identity until nothing remained but awareness without self. The last thing I remember as an individual was the trucks closing in, metal touching flesh, boundaries dissolving. Then I was the impact, the breaking, the scattering. I was particles dispersing into air. I was the sound waves of my own screaming. I was the light reflecting off polished chrome. I drive I-80 every night now. All of me, in every truck that passes through Nebraska, every driver who checks their mirror and sees something wrong in the reflection. I'm there, diluted across thousands, a fraction of consciousness in each, trying to remember what it meant to be singular. Sometimes I recognize myself in oncoming headlights. Sometimes I feel my own presence in the truck behind me, the one that's following too close, matching movements before they happen. And sometimes at mile marker 312 I see him, me. The original Robert Hayes, still driving his route, still hauling pharmaceuticals, unaware that he's already been scattered across the highway. I try to warn him, try to signal with my lights, but I can only mirror his movements exactly. I watch him check his side mirror. I watch his face change as he recognizes himself behind him. I watch the fear spread across features I used to think of as mine. The cycle repeats. It always repeats. Every truck that passes through carries a piece of me, spreading the infection further. One day I think everyone will be me, and I'll finally be alone again. Story 2. The breath on the scanner. The way station scanner shouldn't have detected breathing inside a sealed container of automotive parts, but the customs agent's screen showed a respiratory pattern, steady and slow, coming from inside my cargo. "Pull over to secondary inspection," he said, his voice flat, and I knew before he even finished the sentence that I was about to lose my mind. I'm Patricia Sullivan, 41 years old, and I haul specialized freight across the Canadian border, Edmonton to Seattle, usually electronics or manufacturing components. December 2nd, 2022, I was carrying 32 pallets of fuel injectors sealed at the factory. Documentation perfect, nothing unusual. The load had been locked in my trailer since I picked it up 17 hours earlier. No stops, no unexplained delays. The seals were intact when we rolled through the Peace Arch crossing at 3:12 a.m., but the scanner doesn't lie. The agent pulled up the image, rotating it on his screen so I could see. Among the geometric shapes of packed components, one area showed thermal activity. Body heat thermal activity, human-shaped, moving slightly, the chest rising and falling with rhythmic breathing. He zoomed in. The shape had a face, my face. Pixelated and strange, but unmistakably mine, staring out from between pallets of machinery. "Ma'am, I need you to open the trailer." The agent's hand was on his sidearm. Two other officers appeared from the station, both tense. I held up my hands, showing empty palms, trying to keep my voice steady. "The seals haven't been broken, you can see that. I don't know what's showing on your screen, but there's no one in there. There can't be." I could hear how unconvincing I sounded. My own voice seemed to come from far away, like I was speaking through a tunnel. They cut the seals anyway, all of them recording on body cameras. The door swung open with a metallic screech. Cold air poured out, the refrigerated unit having kept the cargo at exactly 42 degrees for optimal preservation. The pallets sat in perfect rows, shrink-wrapped, labeled normal. The officer with the thermal scanner stepped inside, sweeping it across the cargo. The device beeped rapidly, then emitted a solid tone. He checked the screen, frowned, swept it again. "It's gone," he said. "Whatever was in here, it moved." I felt cold that had nothing to do with the refrigeration. Moved where? But I knew the answer before he said it. The scanner was pointed at me now, showing my body heat, my breathing pattern. Normal. Then it wasn't. The screen split, showing two thermal signatures occupying the same physical space. Both mine, both breathing. Both identical except one was slightly out of phase, exhaling when I inhaled, moving a fraction of a second before I did. "Step out of the trailer, ma'am." The agent's voice had changed, cautious now, afraid. I stepped down and the scanner showed my thermal ghost remaining inside, standing where I'd been standing, still breathing. They could all see it on the screen, a human shape made of heat, mimicking my posture, my height, everything except it was hollow at the core, a shell of warmth surrounding nothing. They pulled me aside, started asking questions I couldn't answer. How long had I been driving? Was I on medication? Had I picked up any passengers? I answered automatically, watching the scanner screen over the agent's shoulder. The ghost was moving through the trailer, inspecting cargo, its movements familiar because they were mine. I'd checked those same pallets the same way when I'd loaded them, adjusting straps, confirming labels. It was replaying my actions from 17 hours ago. No, not replaying. The timing was wrong. The ghost was moving to pallets I was planning to check next. Pallets I'd been thinking about inspecting but hadn't yet. It was following my thoughts, not my memories. When I thought about the front left pallet, the one I'd worried might have shifted during the drive, the ghost moved there immediately. When I remembered the documentation in my cab, the ghost turned toward the trailer door, anticipating. "We need to scan you," a different officer said, a woman with her hair pulled tight and eyes that had seen too much. "Full body scan, medical examination, something's wrong with you." I wanted to argue, but she was right. Something was fundamentally wrong. They led me into the station's medical bay, a sterile room with fluorescent lights that hummed at a frequency that made my molars ache. The scanner they used was bigger, more sophisticated, rotating around me in a slow circle. The technician operating it went pale, called the others over. The screen showed my skeleton, my organs, my circulatory system. All normal, all exactly where they should be, except there were two of everything. Two hearts, beating offset rhythms. Two brains, neural activity flickering in complementary patterns. Two sets of lungs, one inhaling while the other exhaled. I was watching an impossible physiology. Two complete human systems occupying the same space, phased slightly apart, sharing my body without touching. The technician pointed to the temporal markers. "This signature," he indicated the brighter, more solid image, "is current. This is you right now, but this one," he traced the dimmer, ghostly overlay, "is 0.3 seconds in the future. It's showing what you're going to do before you do it." I flexed my right hand. The scanner showed my future hand moving first, then my present hand following. When I turned my head, I could see the ghost head already facing the new direction, waiting for me to catch up. I was haunted by my own immediate future, trapped 0.3 seconds behind myself, following in my own footsteps. "It started at the trailer," I said, understanding flooding through me. "When you scanned the cargo, it saw my future self checking the load and registered it as present. The scanner created this split." Even as I said it, I knew it wasn't quite right. The scanner hadn't created anything. It had revealed something that was already happening, made visible a temporal displacement that had always been there. The woman officer touched my shoulder and I felt her hand twice, once in the present, solid and warm, and once 0.3 seconds ago, a ghost sensation that had already passed but was still somehow present. Time was layering around me, present and future collapsing into simultaneous experience. I was living in two moments at once and they were pulling apart. They tried to sedate me, but the injection hit my future body first, the one that didn't exist yet. I felt the needle's prick 0.3 seconds before it touched my physical skin, felt the drug spreading through phantom veins before it entered my real bloodstream. The sedation worked backward, affecting my future self first, and I experienced unconsciousness as a preview, a dizzying lurch forward in time before snapping back to witness it happening again. When I woke up, the displacement had increased. 0.7 seconds now. I could see my future self sitting in the chair ahead of me, standing and walking toward the door before I consciously decided to move. I followed myself, unable to catch up, watching my own actions from nearly a full second behind. The officers saw it too. My body moved. Then a moment later I animated the space I'd already left, a trailing echo in my own timeline. By the time they released me, they had no legal reason to hold someone for temporal displacement. The gap was 3 full seconds. I drove away from the station, watching my future self steering, shifting, adjusting mirrors. I was a passenger in my own body, following a pilot who was me but ahead of me, making decisions I hadn't made yet but would have to make because I'd already seen myself making them. Free will collapsed into predetermined observation. The gap kept growing. 5 seconds, 10, 30. I pulled into a rest area because my future self did, not because I chose to. I sat in my cab, watching myself sit in my cab 30 seconds in the future. She looked exhausted. I would look exhausted. Did look exhausted. Tense didn't matter anymore. Everything was simultaneous and sequential, past and future, bleeding into a present that had no meaning. At 2 minutes displacement, I saw my future self open her wrists with a utility knife from the toolbox. I watched her bleed into the sink, expression blank, mechanical. Not suicide. Curiosity. She wanted to see if the future blood was real. I had 2 minutes to decide not to do it, to change course, to prove I wasn't locked into following the actions of a me who was always ahead. I spent those 2 minutes sitting perfectly still, fighting the urge to reach for the toolbox, knowing I would lose because I'd already seen myself lose. When my hand moved toward the toolbox, it felt like someone else controlling my muscles. I watched from inside my own head, a prisoner as I opened the blade, as I pressed steel against skin. The pain came from 2 temporal directions. The future wound I'd already seen and the present wound I was creating. Blood ran into the sink, exactly as I'd watched it run 2 minutes earlier. And I understood that I'd been watching my own memory, not my future. The displacement wasn't pushing me forward. It was trapping me in a loop, showing me what I'd already done and forcing me to do it again. The loop tightened. 5 minutes of displacement, 10, an hour. I watched myself drive, stop, eat, sleep, all actions I'd already completed but was doomed to repeat. My future self was my past self, and the present was just the thin moment of transition between them, growing thinner as the displacement increased. Days blurred. I drove routes I'd already driven, delivered loads I'd already delivered, had conversations I'd already had, everything predetermined because it was already history. I'm still driving, still delivering, still crossing the border at Peace Arch every 12 days, carrying automotive parts from Edmonton to Seattle. The agents scan my cargo and find the thermal ghost, the breathing signature that shouldn't exist. They pull me to secondary inspection every time, ask the same questions, see the same doubled physiology on their screens. I answer the same way every time because I've already answered this way. Because the version of me who answered first is still ahead of me, always ahead, pulling me forward through predetermined actions. The displacement is 6 months now. I'm living in June while calendar says December. I watch my future self make decisions half a year before I make them, and I know they're not future decisions at all, just memories I'm being forced to recreate. Somewhere ahead of me in some distant temporal position, there's a version of Patricia Sullivan who made the first choice, the original decision, and we're all just echoes of her, rippling backward through time, acting out her life over and over. Sometimes I see other drivers with the same haunted look, the same distant gaze, and I wonder if they're echoes too. If we're all just temporal ghosts following invisible scripts written by selves we'll never catch up to. The scanner at the way station revealed the truth. We're not living forward, we're remembering backward, and there's no one at the wheel. Story 3, the loading dock that shifted. The warehouse had 12 loading docks when I backed in, and 14 when I tried to leave, and the 2 extra doors led somewhere that wasn't on any map or in any world I recognized. I know because I spent 9 days trying to find my way out of a building that shouldn't have been able to contain 9 minutes. Marcus Chen, 34, hauling consumer electronics up and down the West Coast for 7 years. January 14, 2023, I pulled into a distribution center outside Redding, California, just off I-5, a facility I'd delivered to maybe 50 times before. Same address. Same guard at the gate who nodded me through without checking ID because he recognized my truck. Same potholed driveway. Same faded letters on the building spelling out logistics and fulfillment. Everything was exactly as it always was, which is why I didn't notice the wrongness until I was already inside. I backed up to Dock 7, my regular spot, the one with the hydraulic lift that squeals when it raises. Standard delivery. 4 pallets of laptops, 2 of monitors, all destined for retail stores in Oregon. The dock worker who checked me in was new, didn't recognize him, but turnover is high in these places. He had my paperwork ready, waved me through to unloading. I shut down my engine, climbed out, stretched my back. The clock on the wall said 2:47 p.m. I remember because I was making good time, might get home early for once. They unloaded my cargo in 23 minutes. I watched them wheel out the pallets, scan the barcodes, stack everything in the designated area. Professional, efficient, normal. I signed the delivery confirmation, grabbed my copies, headed back to my truck. That's when I noticed the clock on the wall still said 2:47 p.m. Not unusual, these cheap industrial clocks break all the time. But my phone also said 2:47 p.m. and my watch. And the timestamp on the delivery confirmation I'd just signed. I stood there staring at 3 different time sources, all frozen at 2:47, and felt my first flutter of unease. The dock worker walked past me without making eye contact, pushing an empty pallet jack, and I called out to him, "Hey, what time do you have?" He didn't respond, didn't even turn around, just kept walking toward the back of the warehouse, disappearing through a door marked, "Authorized personnel only." I climbed back into my cab, started the engine. It turned over perfectly, but something felt wrong. The sound was slightly off-pitch, like the engine was running at the wrong RPM even though the tachometer showed normal. I put the truck in gear, started to pull forward, and that's when I saw the extra loading docks. Dock 7 was behind me where I'd been parked. Docks 1 through 6 extended to my left, docks 8 through 12 to my right, just like always. But now there were also docks 13 and 14 positioned where the warehouse wall should have been, occupying space that hadn't existed when I'd backed in. New metal doors, fresh paint, perfectly integrated into the building as if they'd always been there. I stopped, put the truck in park, got out to look. The warehouse facade stretched longer now, extended at least another 60 feet beyond where it should have ended. I could see the edge of the building when I'd arrived. A brick corner, a downspout, landscaping. Now that corner was nowhere visible. The building just continued, seamless and impossible. "We're loading you at Dock 14. A voice behind me. A woman in a logistics uniform holding a tablet, looking at me expectantly. "You're the 4 o'clock pickup, right? Shipment to Portland?" I shook my head. "No, I just dropped off. I'm empty. I'm leaving." She frowned at her tablet. "I have you scheduled for pickup. Marcus Chen, 4 o'clock. That's you, isn't it? That's your truck." It was. My name, my truck number, even my license plate number on her screen. But I hadn't scheduled a pickup, hadn't even talked to dispatch about return loads. I pulled out my phone to call my office, but it had no signal. Not one bar, not searching, just a blank space where the carrier name should be. "Look, there's been a mistake," I started to say, but she was already walking toward Dock 14, clearly expecting me to follow. Something about the way she moved bothered me. Too smooth, too regular, like she was on rails. I looked back at my truck, looked at the warehouse entrance I'd driven through maybe 30 minutes ago. The entrance was gone. Where the main gate should have been, there was just more warehouse wall stretching unbroken to the horizon. My throat went dry. I turned in a full circle. The warehouse surrounded me now, enclosed me on all sides, a square of loading docks facing inward toward a parking area that had somehow become a courtyard. No exit, no entrance. Just docks, dozens of them now, more appearing as I watched. Dock 15, 16, 22, 33. They multiplied, spreading like mold, the building growing to accommodate them, expanding in directions that shouldn't exist. I ran to the nearest door, Dock 19, and pulled it open. Inside was my truck, not a similar truck. Mine. Same paint chip on the hood, same air freshener. Same coffee cup in the holder. I backed away, ran to Dock 26, opened it. My truck again parked inside an impossible space. Every door concealed the same thing, my cab, my trailer, my life, duplicated across dozens of loading docks in a building that had become a maze of recurring nightmare. "You're late for your pickup." The woman with the tablet was behind me again, though I hadn't heard her approach. Her voice had no inflection, her eyes no depth. "Dock 14, you're scheduled for 4 o'clock. It's 4 o'clock. I checked my phone, 2:47 p.m. I checked hers, 4 p.m. Both correct, both impossible. Time wasn't broken, it had fractured, different moments occupying the same space, layered and incompatible. I ran from her, sprinting toward what I hoped was the edge of the building, but the docks went on forever. Numbered into the hundreds now, thousands, all identical, all leading to the same impossible space. I picked a door at random, Dock 847, and went inside. The warehouse interior was vast, shelves stretching up into darkness so complete it felt solid. Forklifts moved in geometric patterns, no drivers visible, carrying pallets that flickered and changed as they traveled. A box of laptop computers became a box of human teeth. A crate of monitors became a crate of clocks, all showing different times. The inventory was metamorphosing, products degrading into component concepts, becoming less coherent with each transformation. Workers moved between the shelves, all wearing the same uniform, all with the same blank expression. I grabbed one by the shoulder, spun him around to face me. He had no face. Just smooth skin where features should be, only the vaguest suggestion of eyes and mouth, like a sculpture someone had given up on halfway through. I stumbled backward, fell into a stack of boxes that collapsed beneath me, spilling contents. Not products, but warehouse documentation. Delivery confirmations, bills of lading, all with my name. All dated January 14th, 2023. Thousands of them, tens of thousands, a paper trail showing I'd been making the same delivery over and over, infinite iterations of the same moment. I ran deeper into the warehouse, past aisles that repeated themselves, past faceless workers stacking faceless products, until I found a door marked "Exit" in glowing letters. I hit the crash bar, burst through, and found myself in the parking area again, standing next to my truck at Dock 7. The clock said 2:47 p.m. The woman with the tablet walked past. "You're late for your pickup, Dock 14, 4 o'clock. I tried to drive away, but every direction led back to the docks. Tried to climb the fence, but there was no fence, just more warehouse. Tried to sleep, hoping I'd wake up somewhere real, but sleep wouldn't come. My body refused, locked in the eternal 2:47 p.m. where biological needs didn't exist. No hunger, no thirst, no fatigue, just awareness stretching on, trapped in a facility that had become its own dimension. Days passed, though the clocks never changed. I marked time by my own deterioration, by the growing certainty that I'd been here much longer than hours or days. The warehouse kept expanding, docks numbering into the millions now. I found loading bays that opened onto other warehouses, infinite recursion. Logistics centers nested within logistics centers. Each one had a version of me, making deliveries, signing documents, loading and unloading cargo that became less substantial with each transfer. On what I think was day 9, I found the original Dock 7 again, recognized it by a specific crack in the pavement. My truck was there, still idling, keys in the ignition. I got in. The dock worker who'd checked me in was standing there with my paperwork, ready for me to sign. Same moment, same delivery. He handed me the clipboard and I saw my signature already on it, dated January 14th, 2023, 2:47 p.m. I was signing a document I'd already signed, completing a delivery I'd already completed, trapped in the exact moment the warehouse had folded around me. I signed it again. What else could I do? The worker took the clipboard, walked toward the back of the building, disappeared through the authorized personnel door. The clock said 2:47 p.m. My phone said 2:47 p.m. The woman with the tablet appeared, walking toward me with purpose. "You're late for your pickup," she said. "Dock 14, 4 o'clock. I got out of my truck and followed her this time. Walked to Dock 14, backed into the space, let them load whatever they wanted to load. 4 pallets of something that might have been laptops or might have been recursive copies of the warehouse itself, packed into shipping containers ready for delivery to destinations that didn't exist. I signed for them, started driving. The exit appeared when I stopped looking for it, a gap in the warehouse wall that led to a road that led to I-5. I merged into traffic, checked my mirrors, saw the facility receding behind me. Normal. I'd escaped. But when I checked the GPS, I was heading south, back toward Reading, approaching the same exit, the same facility. I drove past it, kept going for 2 hours, and then I saw it again ahead of me, impossible but present. The warehouse was everywhere I was going, waiting at every destination. I pull into docks now, all across the West Coast, making deliveries that may or may not be real. Sometimes the facilities have the right number of loading bays, sometimes they don't. Sometimes I see the woman with the tablet, sometimes I see faceless workers, sometimes I see other drivers who look as lost as I feel. We don't speak. We just deliver our cargo and try to leave before the docks multiply, before time freezes, before the building decides to keep us. I made it out of that warehouse in Reading. I'm sure I did. But sometimes I check the clock and it says 2:47 p.m. And I know I'm still there, still trying to find the exit, still backing into Dock 7 for the first time. The warehouse exists in the moment before leaving becomes impossible, and that moment lasts forever. I'm driving through it, delivering cargo to versions of myself who haven't realized they're trapped yet, waiting for the day I see my own truck at Dock 14, waiting for pickup, 4 o'clock, right on schedule. Story 4. The Passenger Who Grew. She was 3 feet tall when she climbed into my truck at the rest stop, and 7 feet tall by the time we hit the next exit, and when I looked at her properly, I could see she was still growing. Bones lengthening in real time. Skin stretching to accommodate frame, expanding in ways that made sounds like cracking ice. "How much farther to Denver?" she asked, her voice deepening with each syllable. And I couldn't answer because my throat had sealed shut with animal terror. Jennifer Walsh, 47 years old, independent contractor hauling furniture and appliances across mountain routes. February 8, 2023, westbound on I-70 through Colorado, past midnight near the Eisenhower Tunnel. I'd stopped at the Silverthorne rest area for coffee and a bathroom break. One of those dead-hour stops where you're the only human in a pool of yellow light surrounded by infinite dark. The woman was standing by the vending machines when I came out of the bathroom, and something about her was already wrong, though I couldn't identify what. She was small, petite, wearing clothes that looked slightly too large, short dark hair, pale skin, maybe late 20s. Nothing threatening. When she asked if I was heading west, I should have said no. I should have said I was full up. That company policy prohibited passengers, that I had no room. Instead, I heard myself say sure and watched her follow me to my truck, her footsteps too quiet, leaving no impressions in the dusting of snow on the pavement. She climbed into the passenger seat with some difficulty, too short to make the step easily, and settled in with a sigh that sounded relieved. "Thank you," she said. "I've been waiting a long time." Something about her phrasing bothered me, but I was tired, eager to get through the tunnel before weather worsened. I pulled back onto I-70, climbing toward the pass, and didn't notice her changing until we were committed to the ascent. No exits, nowhere to pull off. The first sign was her feet. They'd been dangling above the floor, not reaching, and then suddenly they were flat on the mat, knees bent normally. I glanced over. She smiled. "Growing room in here," she said, and laughed at what might have been a pun. Her laugh was deeper than before, resonating. I looked at her more carefully. She was bigger, not slouching, then sitting up bigger. Actually physically larger, filling more of the seat, her clothes fitting properly now. "What?" I started, but she interrupted, pointing through the windshield at a deer on the shoulder, eyes reflecting red in my headlights. "Pretty," she said, and her hand was wrong. Too many knuckles. Fingers that were 6 inches long and still extending, joints popping as new segments formed between existing ones. I jerked my eyes back to the road, heart hammering, trying to process what I'd seen. "You can let me out at the next exit," she said, her voice now in a register that male and female, something between or beyond. I checked the GPS, 32 miles to the next exit. The tunnel was coming up, 2 lanes carved through mountain, no shoulder, no stopping, just a mile and a half of enclosed darkness. I couldn't pull over, couldn't turn around, could only keep driving forward with something that was becoming increasingly not human sitting 18 inches away from me. She was 4 feet tall now, head level with my shoulder. I could hear her growing, the wet sound of meat expanding, the creaking of cartilage, the pop of vertebrae stacking upward. Her clothes were tearing, seams splitting. And underneath the fabric, I could see her skin moving, crawling, accommodating the transformation. She noticed me looking and smiled again. Her teeth too white, too many of them, row behind row like a shark. "Sorry," she said, not sounding sorry at all. "Can't help it. Happens when I travel. Something about movement, about distance. The farther I go, the more I become." She stretched, her arm extending too far, elbow bending backward, hand touching the roof of the cab with fingers that had multiplied, 7 on each hand now. All different lengths, all flexing independently. I hit the tunnel entrance doing 78 miles per hour. And the orange lights inside flickered across her transforming body in strobe effect, highlighting each change. 5 feet tall, 6 feet. Her head touched the ceiling of the cab, then dented it, metal groaning as she hunched to fit, spine curving in too many places. Her legs were folding wrong, knees bending sideways, new joints appearing along her thighs, allowing her to compress and expand simultaneously. "Pull over," I managed to say, though there was nowhere to pull over, just tunnel walls streaming past at highway speed. "Can't stop," she said, her voice now a chorus, multiple tones overlapping. "Stopping makes it worse. Have to keep moving, keep the growth distributed. If we stop, I expand outward instead of upward, fill the space, fill everything." She demonstrated by holding out her hand, and her fingers spread like a flower blooming in fast motion, each digit splitting into branches, into fractals. creating a forest of flesh that reached toward me before pulling back into something resembling a hand. We burst out of the tunnel into open night, and she was 7 feet tall now, cramped against the ceiling, her body contorted to fit the cab. I could see her, in my peripheral vision, a mass of limbs that had too many angles, that folded and unfolded in ways that made my eyes hurt. She was still recognizably humanoid, but the proportions were wrong. Arms too long, legs with extra segments, a torso that seemed to have multiple spines running through it, all flexing independently. "I used to be normal," she said, her voice coming from somewhere in her chest, not her mouth. Her face was still relatively human, but stretching, features spreading apart. "Used to be small and stopped and contained. Then I started traveling, started moving through spaces, and I learned that size isn't fixed. It's relative. It's determined by motion and intent and observation. When no one's watching, I can be any size. But you're watching, so I have to be seen as growing, have to manifest the change, make it visible." I wanted to close my eyes, to not observe, to make her stop changing, but I couldn't look away from the road, and she was in my peripheral vision, unavoidable. 8 feet tall. 9. Her head had pushed through the ceiling of the cab, not breaking through, but somehow occupying the same space as the metal and fabric, phasing through matter. I could see her skull extending upward through the roof, transparent against the night sky, filled with pulsing light that might have been thought or might have been something worse. She laughed, and the sound made the truck vibrate. "You picked me up," she said. "You invited me in. Now I'm part of your vehicle, part of your journey. I'll grow until we reach Denver, and then I'll be the right size for wherever I'm going next. Something bigger needs me, something vast." 10 feet tall. 12. Her body filled the entire cab now, compressed impossibly, and I was inside it somehow, driving through her mass, my body occupying the same coordinates as hers, feeling her transformation around me, through me. Her growth was incorporating me, pulling me into her expanding framework, and I could feel my own bones responding, trying to lengthen, trying to match her change. I slammed the brakes, truck shuddering, trailer fishtailing. She screamed, a sound that broke windows and exploded outward, not violently. Slowly, inevitably, like a flower opening, like a universe expanding, she flowed through the cab, through the metal, growing into the spaces between atoms, filling the truck and the air and the road and everything. I was inside her, drowning in flesh that had no boundaries, surrounded by a body that had become environment. Then we stopped, and she collapsed inward, contracting faster than she'd grown, sucked back into human shape by the cessation of motion. When I opened my eyes, she was sitting in the passenger seat again, 3 feet tall, petite, wearing clothes that were too large, exactly as she'd been when she got in. "Why did you stop?" she asked, voice high and young again. "I asked you not to stop." I looked around. We were parked on the shoulder, 23 miles from Denver, snow falling heavily. I didn't remember pulling over. Didn't remember the last 15 minutes. My hands were shaking on the wheel, and there was blood under my fingernails, though I hadn't scratched anything. The ceiling of my cab had a dent shaped like a head, and the metal was warm to the touch. "Get out," I whispered. "Please get out." She looked sad. "I can't. Not until we reach where I'm going. If I get out here, I'll grow without moving, and I'll fill Colorado. I'll fill the continent. I need motion to direct the growth, to channel it into something controlled. Please keep driving." She was crying now, tears running down her small face, and the tears were wrong, too thick, leaving trails that smoked against her skin. I drove. What choice did I have? I couldn't let her out, couldn't risk whatever she'd become without motion to contain her. Every mile closer to Denver, she grew again, 4 feet, 5, 6. The growth was accelerating, compounding, her body having learned the pattern, By the time I saw the city lights, she was 15 feet tall, her body extending through the roof, through the trailer behind us, her mass distributed along the length of my truck, incorporated into its structure. We pulled into the delivery address she'd given me, a warehouse on the outskirts of Denver. The loading dock door was 60 feet tall, built for something that wasn't trucks. She flowed out of my cab like liquid, gathering herself into a vertical mass, standing 30 feet high now, still wearing scraps of her original clothes like pennants on a flagpole. Other things waited in the warehouse, tall things, things that had grown beyond containing, and they welcomed her with sounds that might have been language. She looked back at me, her face now 20 feet above ground, still recognizable, still human enough to convey expression. "Thank you for the ride," she said, voice booming. "Sorry about the cab, it grows back." Then she walked into the warehouse with the others and the door closed behind them, a door too large for any world I wanted to live in. I sat in my truck for an hour, maybe more, trying to understand what I'd seen. The dent in my ceiling smoothed itself out while I watched, metal flowing like wax, repairing. The blood under my nails disappeared. The whole truck seemed to resettle, to normalize, to forget what it had contained. But I remembered. I still pick up hitchhikers sometimes. I can't help it. Something changed in me that night, some compulsion implanted. When I see someone small standing alone in the dark, I stop, even though I know what might happen. They get in. They thank me. They grow. And I drive them to wherever things like them gather, to warehouses and valleys and empty places where scale doesn't matter, where size is negotiable, where human proportions are just a starting point. Most of them are kind about it. Most apologize for the transformation, for the discomfort, for the way reality bends around their expansion. They promise it'll be okay, that I'll forget, that the journey will end normally. They're lying, but it's a compassionate lie. One of them stayed small, stayed 3 feet tall the whole journey, and when we reached her destination, she said, "You're growing too. Can't you feel it? Every trip you get a little bigger on the inside. Soon you'll be too large for your body, and then you'll understand what we are, what we're becoming." I didn't believe her until last week when I looked in the mirror and my reflection was too tall for the frame, standing in a space deeper than the mirror's depth. I'm still normal-sized on the outside, but inside I'm expanding, growing to accommodate something vast, something that needs distance and motion and observation to manifest. I'm becoming a vehicle for growth itself, and every mile I drive makes the transformation more inevitable. Sometimes I see other truckers with the same look in their eyes, the same haunted awareness that we're carrying something that's changing us from within. We don't talk about it. We just drive our routes, pick up our passengers, deliver them to places that aren't on maps. And we grow. Slowly, inexorably, we become the territory we travel through, expanding until we're too large for single bodies, distributed across highways and rest stops and the spaces between destinations. She was right. I understand now. And I can't stop driving. Story 5. The radio that answered back. My CB radio started responding to thoughts I hadn't spoken 3 minutes before I thought them, and the voice coming through the speaker was mine but older, warning me about the accident I was about to cause, even though I was driving perfectly straight, even though the road was empty, even though the voice was describing watching myself die. "Ghost Rider, this is Ghost Rider. In 3 minutes, you're going to drift into the left lane and collide with a sedan. 2 children die. You die. I'm you 30 years later, still trying to prevent it. It never works. Then static. Then the impact that came from nowhere. Thomas Hendricks, 52 years old, hauling steel construction materials on I-40 through Arizona. November 3rd, 2022. Late afternoon, clear weather, perfect visibility. I'd been running this route for 16 years. Knew every mile marker, every turn, every place where cops like to hide. The CB was usually quiet this time of day, just occasional trucker chatter about traffic or weather. When my own voice came through the speaker, I thought someone was pranking me with a recording. Ghost Rider, do you copy? This is Ghost Rider. Listen carefully. You're going to check your right mirror in 15 seconds. You'll see a blue sedan trying to pass. You'll drift left to give them room, but there's another sedan in your blind spot. You'll collide at 73 miles per hour. I've lived this 46,000 times. I've never been able to stop it. The voice was mine, but aged, rough with fatigue, desperate with repetition. I checked my right mirror. No sedan, no cars at all. I was alone on this stretch, just empty desert highway. "Who is this?" I said into the CB, trying to sound annoyed rather than unnerved. "It's you. Thomas Hendricks, November 3rd, 2052. 30 years from now. I'm stuck in the moment after the crash, trying to warn younger versions of myself, trying to change it. But every time you hear me, you do exactly what I did, what you'll do, what you're doing now. Free will is a fucking illusion when you can see the timeline looped." My hands tightened on the wheel. Prank. Had to be a prank. But the voice knew my handle, knew today's date, knew my name. "This isn't funny," I said. "It's not meant to be funny, it's meant to be a warning. In 10 seconds, check your right mirror. Blue sedan, you'll see it this time." I checked. A blue sedan was overtaking on the right, exactly as he'd said. A woman driving, 2 kids in the back seat. My stomach dropped. "I see it," I said. "Now you'll drift left. You always drift left. You think you're giving her room, but there's a white sedan in your blind spot. You never see it. Neither of them survive." I looked left, checked my mirror carefully. Nothing there. The road was clear. The blue sedan finished passing on my right, pulled ahead. Safe. No accident, no collision. I exhaled, realized I'd been holding my breath. "Nothing happened," I said into the CB. "There was no accident. Wait for it." His voice, my voice, was sad. "You don't hit the blue sedan. You hit the white sedan that appears in 3, 2, 1. The white sedan materialized in the left lane, not driving into frame, but simply existing where nothing had existed a moment before, at exactly the wrong position, exactly the wrong speed. I saw it for a fraction of a second before my trailer clipped its rear quarter panel. Time fractured. I felt the impact in slow motion, metal shrieking, my truck lurching, the sedan spinning away like a toy. I fought the wheel, Jake brakes screaming, trying to stop 60,000 pounds of inertia. The truck jackknifed. The world rotated. I saw sky, then road, then sky again. When everything stopped moving, I was upside down, held by my seatbelt, blood running into my eyes from a cut somewhere on my scalp. The CB was still crackling with static. Then my voice again. "You're not dead yet. This is the part where you try to get out, but the fire starts before you can unbuckle. I've burned alive 46,000 times. Maybe this time is different. It never is." I smelled gasoline, sharp and overwhelming, saw flames in the side mirror, orange light growing. Reached for my seatbelt with hands that didn't want to work properly. The buckle was jammed, bent in the impact, release mechanism broken. I pulled harder. Panic overriding pain. The flames grew closer, heat washing over me. "This is where I scream," my future voice narrated from the CB. "Where I beg for help that doesn't come. Where I realize this is how it ends, and this is how it's always ended, and this is how it will always end because I'm trapped in the loop, living it over and over, conscious for every iteration." The fire reached the cab. I felt it start to burn, felt skin blistering, felt my lungs filling with smoke. I screamed and heard my own scream echoing from the CB, overlapping past and present and future, screaming together. The world went bright and hot and then dark. I woke up driving, I-40 through Arizona, November 3rd, 2022, late afternoon. Clear weather, perfect visibility. My hands on the wheel, no blood, no burns, no accident. The CB crackled. Ghost Rider, this is Ghost Rider. In 3 minutes, you're going to drift into the left lane and collide with a sedan. 2 children die. You die. I'm you, 30 years later, still trying to prevent it. It never works. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was different. This was the same warning, the same voice, but I'd already heard it, already lived it, already died. I know, I said into the CB. I just crashed, I just burned, I remember. Silence. Then, you remember? That's new. None of the other iterations remembered. You're still in the loop, but you're aware. That's worse. That's so much worse. How do I stop it? I was checking all my mirrors compulsively, looking for the sedans, looking for the accident forming around me. You don't. I've tried everything. Different lanes, different speeds, stopping completely. The accident finds you anyway. Reconfigures itself to match whatever changes you make. The only constant is that you die, and then you're back here 3 minutes before it happens, with me on the CB trying to warn you. The blue sedan appeared in my right mirror, beginning its pass. I slowed down, let it get ahead, watched it pull in front of me with plenty of clearance. No drift to the left, no white sedan. Maybe this time would be different. A truck tire blew, not mine, someone else's, on the opposite side of the highway. The truck swerved, crossed the median, came into my lane head-on. I jerked the wheel right, avoiding it by inches, but the maneuver put me into the path of the blue sedan, which had slowed unexpectedly. I rear-ended it at 67 miles per hour, crushed it against my bumper, felt small bodies impact inside. The sedan's gas tank ruptured. Fire. The same heat, the same death. I woke up driving. I-40 through Arizona. November 3rd, 2022, late afternoon. The CB crackled with my own voice, older, more desperate. Ghost Rider, this is Ghost Rider. In 3 minutes, you're going to drift into the left lane. I know, I shouted. I've died twice now. I remember both times. How many times have you done this? 46,732 iterations as of this moment. It keeps counting up. Every 3 minutes and 45 seconds, another death, another loop. I've been dying for 30 years, over and over, trying to warn past versions of myself. Sometimes you remember. Usually you don't. It doesn't matter. The accident is inevitable. I pulled over onto the shoulder, put the truck in park, shut off the engine. I'm not driving, I'm stopping. No driving means no accident. Iteration 712, you tried that. A drunk driver left the highway, hit you while you were parked, still died, still came back here. A drunk driver appeared from nowhere, careening off the road, T-boning my stationary truck. Pain, fire, death, reset. I woke up driving, screamed immediately, long and raw. The CB crackled. Ghost Rider, this is Ghost Rider. What do I do? I screamed at myself, at the radio, at the universe that had trapped me in 3 minutes and 45 seconds of recursive death. You can't do anything. The loop isn't about preventing the accident. The accident is the mechanism that creates the loop. You're not trying to avoid dying, you're already dead. Have been for 30 years. This is the afterlife for people who die with unfinished business, reliving the moment of death forever, always trying to change it, never succeeding. I drove in numb silence, waiting for whatever variation of the accident would kill me this time. A tire blowout, a heart attack, a meteor. It didn't matter. The mechanism would find a way. The blue sedan passed on my right. I watched it in my mirror, waiting for the trigger. Instead, the sedan pulled ahead safely. Nothing happened. 3 minutes passed. 4. 5. I kept driving, holding my breath, waiting for death that didn't come. Why am I still alive? I asked the CB. You're not. You're just in the longer gap between iterations. Sometimes the loop extends, gives you hope, lets you think you've escaped. Then it contracts again. You might drive for hours, days, years. but eventually you'll die in an accident on November 3rd, 2022 on I-40 in Arizona, and wake up 3 minutes before it happens. I drove for 17 days, made it all the way to North Carolina, delivered my load, picked up another, started heading back west. The calendar said November 20th. I was free. The loop had broken. Then my brakes failed on a mountain pass, and I rolled the truck and burned and woke up driving. I-40 through Arizona, November 3rd, 2022. I've died 600 times now by my count, still less than future me, but catching up. I've tried everything. Driving off cliffs, deliberately, shooting myself, burning the truck, setting off the cargo of construction materials as a bomb. Every method leads to the same place, 3 minutes before the first accident, with my older voice on the CB, warning me about inevitability. Sometimes other truckers hear my transmissions. They respond with confusion. "Ghost Rider, you're not making sense, you okay?" I try to warn them. Tell them about the loop, about being trapped in time, about dying forever. They think I'm having a breakdown. Maybe I am. Maybe I've been having a breakdown for 30 years, stretched across 46,000 deaths, fragmenting into versions of myself scattered through time, all conscious, all aware, all screaming warnings through CB radios to iterations that can't be saved. The worst part is knowing I'm not unique. I've heard other voices on the CB, other truckers warning themselves, other loops overlapping mine. We're all dying on our own specific stretches of highway, on our own specific dates, trying to prevent accidents that have already defined our eternities. The roads are full of ghosts, driving routes they died on, trying to outrun deaths that are always waiting 3 minutes ahead. I'm still driving, still trying, still dying every 3 minutes and 45 seconds. Future me is still warning past me through the CB, voice getting older, more desperate, more broken. In 30 years, I'll be him, transmitting backward, knowing it won't work, doing it anyway because there's nothing else to do. Ghost Rider, this is Ghost Rider. If you're hearing this, check your mirrors. The accident is coming. It's always coming. And when you die, you'll wake up here 3 minutes before it happens, with me on the radio warning you about the future you can't escape. Story 6. The cargo that leaked upward. The liquid in trailer 27 was leaking upward into the sky, defying gravity in streams that disappeared into clouds. And when I climbed onto the roof to check for damage, I found the top of my trailer didn't have an outer surface anymore, just an opening into somewhere else, somewhere vast and cold that was drinking my cargo and starting to drink me. My boots stuck to the edge, not gravity holding them, but something pulling from above, and I realized too late that some deliveries aren't meant to reach their destinations. They're meant to reach through them. Angela Morrison, 39 years old, hauling hazmat materials for specialty chemical companies, certified for dangerous goods transport. April 22, 2023, northbound on Highway 97 through Oregon, carrying 32 drums of industrial solvent from Sacramento to Portland. The manifest called it non-toxic, non-flammable, low risk, but the smell that seeped into my cab at mile marker 183 was wrong. Sweet and electric, like ozone mixed with rotting flowers. I pulled over at a scenic overlook to check the seals. Everything looked intact. No visible leaks, no damage to the drums, cargo straps tight. But the smell was intensifying, making my eyes water. And when I walked around to the passenger side of the trailer, I saw it. A thin stream of silver liquid flowing upward from a seam in the trailer wall, ascending in a perfect vertical line until it vanished into the overcast sky. Not spraying, not misting. Flowing like water, defying physics, maintaining cohesion as it rose, a thread of liquid stretching from my trailer to clouds 600 feet above. I reached out to touch it, and the liquid was cold enough to burn. I jerked my hand back, watched the skin on my fingers turn white, then blue, then recover slowly. The stream never wavered, never broke, just kept flowing upward at a steady rate. I grabbed my phone to call dispatch, but it wouldn't connect. Not no signal. The call connected but produced only silence, a void where sound should be. I tried the CB. Same thing. Connection without communication, as if the radio waves were being absorbed by something before they could reach their destination. The only sound was the wind and the liquid flowing, which made a noise like whispered counting, numbers ascending. 47, 48, 49. I climbed onto the trailer using the side ladder carefully, knowing this violated about 15 safety protocols, but needing to see where the liquid was coming from. The roof of the trailer was standard aluminum, slightly corroded, pooled with rainwater from earlier showers, except for one section. In a roughly circular area about 6 feet in diameter, the roof wasn't there, not damaged or torn, absent. The circular gap opened onto nothing, a perfect void, and from this void the liquid was emerging, flowing upward from below up, if that made any sense. I looked into the void. It looked back. Not metaphorically. The darkness inside the gap had attention, had focus, had something approximating intention. I felt it notice me, felt its awareness slide across my skin like cold oil. The liquid stream thickened, increasing its flow rate, and new streams began forming, additional threads rising from different points in the void circle. 53, 54, 55. The whispered counting grew louder, more insistent. I backed away from the edge, but my boots were stuck. Not physically, the trailer roof wasn't adhesive, but motion had become difficult, like moving through water, atmospheric pressure wrong somehow. The air above the trailer was thicker, heavier, pulling downward while simultaneously pulling upward, conflicting forces creating a zone where normal movement required enormous effort. One of the new liquid streams touched my leg. I felt it wrap around my calf like a tentacle, cold seeping through my jeans into muscle, into bone. The whispered counting came from inside my head now. 61, 62, 63. I was being measured, quantified, assessed for some purpose I couldn't comprehend. I pulled my leg away, tearing free with effort that left me gasping. The liquid stream released reluctantly, leaving a residue on my jeans that glowed faintly blue. Where it had touched me, my leg felt distant, not quite mine, like it belonged to someone standing slightly to my left. I climbed down from the trailer, hands shaking, and ran for my cab. The truck wouldn't start. The engine turned over but didn't catch, and through my windshield I could see why. One of the liquid streams had reached down, or up, directionality was confused, and touched my hood. The metal was dissolving, not corroding but transitioning, changing state from solid to something less defined. I watched the hood lose cohesion, watched it begin flowing upward in its own stream, steel becoming liquid, becoming air, becoming gone. I got out, started walking. Had to get away from the trailer, from whatever was emerging from or through it. Made it maybe 30 yards before I looked back and saw the entire truck was dissolving now. Dozens of streams converting matter to liquid to ascension. The cargo drums were opening like flowers, their contents joining the upward flow, and where the liquid touched ground, the ground began flowing too. Asphalt, dirt, grass, everything transitioning, joining the streams, rising. 112, 113, 114. The counting was everywhere, emanating from the streams themselves, from the sky, from inside my body. I looked at my hands and saw them beginning to liquefy at the fingertips, skin losing distinction, flesh becoming fluid. The transformation was painless but terrifying, watching my body lose integrity, lose solidity, start to flow. I ran. The highway stretched ahead empty, and I sprinted along the shoulder, trying to outrun the dissolution spreading from my trailer. But the streams were following, bending through space, curving back toward me. One touched my shoulder, another my back. They were claiming me, pulling me into the upward flow, converting me from solid to liquid to whatever lay beyond. When I couldn't run anymore, I collapsed on the pavement, gasping, and felt the liquid pool around me. Not falling from above, emerging from below, from inside the road itself, as if the entire highway was becoming a conduit for whatever was drinking through my trailer. I was lying in a growing puddle of reality, becoming something else. And the puddle was rising, lifting me, carrying me upward. The ascension was slow. I floated on liquid that shouldn't exist, rising inch by inch, watching the ground recede. The streams from my trailer had multiplied to hundreds now, thousands, a forest of upward flow converging on a point in the clouds where something was opening, a gap in the sky that matched the gap in my trailer roof. Above and below connected, the trailer just a doorway, and I was being delivered through it. 741, 742, 743. The counting had become rhythmic, musical, and I realized it was measuring me, breaking me down into component parts, quantifying my mass, my memories, my identity, converting everything to numbers that could be transmitted upward through the liquid medium. I passed through the cloud layer. The world above the clouds was wrong. The sky wasn't blue, it was every color simultaneously, shifting through spectrums that hurt to perceive. The sun was too large, too close, and it wasn't burning. It was hungry. The streams of liquid flowed into it, feeding it, and it grew fractionally larger with each drop consumed. I understood then. The cargo wasn't leaking. It was being harvested, and I was part of the harvest. Other streams were visible now, descending from or ascending to the hungry sun, coming from other points on the ground far below. Other trucks, other deliveries, other drivers floating upward in cocoons of liquid, being counted, being measured, being consumed. We were crop. The highways were fields, the trucks were harvesters. And something vast and patient had been waiting for us to ripen. I tried to scream, but my mouth was full of liquid, sweet and electric, dissolving my tongue, my teeth, my throat. I was becoming the substance I'd been hauling, indistinguishable from cargo. The counting reached 4,017 before I lost coherence enough to stop tracking numbers. My consciousness was fragmenting, spreading through the liquid like dye and water, and I experienced existence from multiple points simultaneously. Still rising, already consumed, not yet caught, all at once. The sun opened, not like a mouth, like a door, like a gateway, like the absence at the center of existence. The streams poured into it, carrying dissolved matter, dissolved drivers, dissolved trucks, everything converted to liquid information flowing into whatever lay beyond. I went through still conscious enough to know I was being unmade, to feel each component of my being separated and cataloged and stored in architecture that wasn't physical, that existed in dimensions I couldn't comprehend. I woke up in my truck northbound on Highway 97, April 22, 2023, approaching mile marker 183. The manifest on my dash said I was carrying 32 drums of industrial solvent to Portland. Non-toxic, non-flammable, low risk. I checked my mirrors. The trailer looked solid, intact, normal. But I could smell ozone and rotting flowers. Could hear whispered counting, faint but growing louder. 1, 2, 3. And when I looked at my hands on the steering wheel, my fingers were slightly translucent at the tips, not quite solid, as if I hadn't fully reconstituted from the last ascension. I'm on my 14th iteration now by my count. Each time I deliver the cargo, it starts flowing upward. I dissolve and rise and get consumed. Then I wake, up before mile marker 183, starting the delivery again. The loop is tightening. The gaps between iterations are shrinking. I used to have 2 weeks between deliveries, now it's 3 days. Soon it'll be hours, then minutes, then I'll be permanently cycling through dissolution and reconstitution. existing only in the moment of being harvested. Other hazmat drivers have the same look I do, the same translucent fingertips, the same distant gaze. We recognize each other at truck stops, way stations, rest areas. We don't talk about it. What would we say? That we're being farmed? That our cargo is bait? That the highways are feeding tubes connecting Earth to something hungry above? My phone rang yesterday. I answered even though I knew better. The voice on the other end was counting 14,307, 14,308. It was measuring me in real time, tracking my dissolution across iterations, quantifying how much of Angela Morrison had been consumed and how much remained. I'm scheduled for another delivery tomorrow. Sacramento to Portland. 32 drums of industrial solvent. The manifest says low risk, but the smell is already in my cab. Sweet and electric, ozone and flowers. When I check my mirrors, I can see liquid streams beginning to form. Thin threads rising from my trailer into the sky, and above the clouds something vast is opening, preparing to drink. I'll make the delivery. I don't have a choice. The route is inevitable. The harvest is inevitable. And when I dissolve this time, maybe I won't reconstitute. Maybe the loop will finally complete and what's left of me will join the other consumed drivers in whatever architecture exists beyond the hungry sun. But probably not. Probably I'll wake up before mile marker 183 again, starting over, being counted from one, driving cargo that leaks upward into waiting mouths I can't see but can always feel. The streams are beautiful in their way. Perfect vertical lines of silver liquid rising forever, measuring forever, drinking forever. Sometimes I think about letting them take me without resisting, about surrendering to the ascension and dissolving peacefully. But fear keeps me running, keeps me fighting, keeps me driving even though I know the road only goes one direction. Upward, always upward, into the hungry sky that counts us all. Story 7. The Town That Repeated. I drove through Millerton Falls, Montana 17 times before I realized it was the same town occurring at different points on the highway. And by the 18th pass, I noticed the people were the same people in different configurations, living identical lives offset by minutes. And by the 19th, I understood I was watching the town digest itself through temporal loop, and I was the only thing moving forward while everything else spiraled inward. The sheriff who pulled me over on the 20th pass was the same sheriff who'd been killed in a bar fight on the 7th, and when I told him he was dead, he smiled and said, "I know. We're all dead here. We died when you first drove through." Nathan Cross, 56 years old, long-haul owner-operator, been driving for 31 years. May 17, 2023, heading east on Route 2 through Montana backcountry, late spring, everything green and wet from recent rain. I first saw Millerton Falls around 3:30 p.m. Typical small town. Population maybe 1,500, one main street, handful of shops, gas station, diner. I needed fuel and food, so I pulled off. The fuel pump was old-fashioned, needed manual operation. While I waited for the tank to fill, I noticed the diner across the street. A woman stood in the window watching me. Blonde hair, blue dress, expression I couldn't read. She raised her hand in greeting or warning, I couldn't tell which. I waved back. She didn't move, just kept staring, hand frozen mid-gesture. I paid for fuel, drove to the diner, parked, went inside. The woman from the window wasn't there. Different waitress, dark-haired, wearing a red uniform with a name tag that said Sharon. She poured coffee without asking, smiled tired hospitality. "Just passing through?" she asked. "Yeah, headed to North Dakota. Long way still to go." The coffee was good, hot and bitter. I ordered a burger, ate it watching traffic on Main Street. Minimal, a pickup truck, a sedan, a sheriff's cruiser that slowed as it passed, the deputy inside looking at my rig with professional assessment. Normal small-town rhythm. I finished eating, left a tip, got back on the road by 4:15 p.m. 3 hours later, I drove through Millerton Falls again. Same town, same main street, same gas station, same diner. I checked my GPS, confused. It showed me 170 miles east of my previous position. Different town name, Bridger Creek. But everything looked identical. Same layout, same buildings, even the same pickup truck driving down Main Street at the same speed in the same direction. Coincidence? Montana has a lot of small towns that look similar. I kept driving, trying to ignore the uneasy flutter in my stomach. But an hour later, I passed through again. Different GPS location, Stillwater Junction, same town, same gas station, same diner. This time I saw the woman in the blue dress in the window raising her hand exactly as before, frozen mid-gesture. I pulled over on the shoulder just outside town, hands shaking, checked the map. I was on Route 2, heading east, no loops, no circles, just straight highway. But I'd passed through the same town 3 times at 3 different locations. Impossible. I got out of my truck, walked back toward the town on foot. Read the welcome sign, Millerton Falls, population 1,547, established 1898. The same sign I'd seen the first time. Not similar, identical. Same faded paint, same bullet hole in the top left corner. I was in the same town, but the highway had led me through it 3 times, presenting it as different locations. The road wasn't looping. The town was recurring, manifesting at multiple points simultaneously. I walked down Main Street. Sharon, the waitress, was visible through the diner window pouring coffee. The same motion, the same gesture, frozen mid-pour like a paused video. I pushed open the diner door. She completed the motion, smiled at me, said, "Just passing through," in exactly the same inflection as before. "I was here 3 hours ago," I said. "You served me. I had a burger." She frowned, confused. "Sorry, don't remember. We get a lot of travelers. Coffee?" I sat at the counter watching her. She moved through her routine naturally, no indication she was aware of the repetition. When the sheriff's cruiser drove past outside, I ran out, flagged it down. The deputy rolled down his window. Young guy, mid-20s, name tag reading Brooks. "I've been driving through this town over and over," I said. 3 times in the last 4 hours. Different locations on the map, but the same town. What's happening here? Deputy Brooks stared at me with flat eyes. "You should keep driving," he said. "Don't stop, don't stay overnight, just keep moving through." "Through what? What is this place?" "Millerton Falls," he said, like that explained everything. Then he drove away, turning down a side street, and I jogged after him. Turned the same corner. The street was empty. No cruiser, no deputy. Just residential homes and a dead end. I went back to my truck, decided to test something. Drove east for exactly 1 hour at steady speed, checking the odometer. 63 miles. Then I saw the town again. Same welcome sign. Same impossible recurrence. But this time, something was different. The woman in the blue dress wasn't in the diner window. She was standing on the sidewalk, directly in front of my truck, and I slammed the brakes to avoid hitting her. She didn't move as I stopped inches away. Just stood there, hand raised, frozen. I got out, walked around to face her. Up close, I could see she was crying. Tears stopped mid-fall on her cheeks, suspended. Her lips were parted, beginning to form a word. I leaned close, trying to read her expression. "Leave," she whispered, barely audible. Then she moved fast, grabbing my arm with cold hands. "Don't stop. It catches anyone who stops. You have to keep moving or you'll become part of the loop, part of the town, repeating forever." What catches people? What is this? We don't know. Something happened here years ago. The town started repeating. We're stuck in the same day, the same hours, living it over and over, but we're aware, God, we're aware. Every repetition, we remember the previous ones, and we can't stop. Can't change anything, just replay the same moments while travelers drive through and witness us dying over and over. I looked around. Other people were visible now, standing in doorways, looking out windows, all frozen in various poses, all crying, all aware. How many times has this day repeated, I asked. We don't know, thousands, tens of thousands. Time doesn't pass anymore, just circles. The only change is travelers like you who come through and we try to warn them, but they never believe, never stay, never help. They just drive through witnessing us, and each time they pass through, they anchor the loop more deeply, make it more real. I backed away from her. I'll get help. I'll report this. Someone will come. No one comes. We're not on any maps except the one your GPS generates when you're trapped in the loop. You're the anchor now. You've passed through enough times that you're part of the pattern. You'll keep driving through Millerton Falls forever, watching us repeat, unable to escape the route. I ran to my truck, got in, drove away fast, checked the GPS. It showed Route 2 continuing east, normal highway. No indication of loops or impossible geography. I drove for 2 hours straight, no stops, watching the miles accumulate. Then I saw the welcome sign again. Millerton Falls, population 1,547, established 1898. This time, when I drove through, the town was different, earlier in its day. Sharon, the waitress, wasn't at the diner yet. Different waitress, different shift. The pickup truck hadn't made its drive down Main Street. I was witnessing the town at a different point in its cycle, and I understood. Each time I passed through, I was arriving at a different hour in the same repeating day. If I kept driving, kept passing through, I'd eventually witness the complete 24-hour loop, all occurring simultaneously across multiple points on my route. I drove through at dawn, 6th pass. Drove through at midnight, 7th pass. Drove through at 4 a.m., 8th pass. Each time the town was at a different temporal point, but the people were the same, and they all looked at me with recognition now, with desperation. They waved. They held up signs. They mouthed words I couldn't hear through my closed windows. Help us, stop, stay, break the loop. On the 11th pass, I saw Deputy Brooks shoot a man outside the bar. Self-defense looked like. The man had a knife, was attacking. Brooks fired twice, clean center mass. The man fell, bleeding. On the 12th pass, I drove through 3 hours later in the loop, and the same man was alive, walking down Main Street, unaware he'd be dead in 3 hours. On the 13th pass, I witnessed the shooting again, earlier approach, and realized I'd seen this exact moment before, repeating. The town was a loop within loops, nested cycles of repeated time, and I was threading through them, witnessing the same deaths and births and mundane moments occurring simultaneously across different temporal layers. Sharon, the waitress, died in a car crash on the 15th pass. I saw the wreck, saw her body, and served me coffee on the 16th pass, alive and unaware. The woman in the blue dress fell from the diner roof on the 17th pass, suicide or accident, and stood in the window on the 18th crying because she remembered falling. I stopped trying to escape. Stopped believing I could. The road was locked now. Route 2 just a circuit through Millerton Falls, presenting the town at different times, and I was the needle moving through the grooves of a warped record, forced to play the same song forever. My fuel gauge stayed at half tank. My odometer stopped counting. Time outside the loop ceased mattering. On the 20th pass, Sheriff Brooks, different from Deputy Brooks, older, different shift or different year of the loop, pulled me over. I rolled down my window. He leaned in, face hard and knowing. "You're the anchor," he said. "The witness. Every loop needs someone to observe it, to make it real. We've been waiting for you. The last anchor died in 1987 and the town started fading, becoming less coherent. But you've driven through enough times now. You've seen enough. You're locked in with us. I'll crash my truck, I said. I'll die. Then there's no witness. He smiled, sad. I thought that too. 37 years ago when I was the traveler, when I first got caught in the loop. You can die. You'll just start over at the first pass, alive again, driving through again. Death isn't an exit here, nothing is. I drove away, but he was right. I crashed deliberately on the 21st pass, drove my truck off the road at 80 miles per hour. Died in the impact, felt my skull break, felt everything stop. Woke up driving Route 2, approaching Millerton Falls for the first time, 3:30 p.m., late spring, everything green and wet. The woman in the blue dress stood in the diner window, raising her hand in warning. I knew exactly what would happen next. Had lived it thousands of times, would live it thousands more. I'm on my 47th pass now. 47 loops through the same day, watching the same people live and die and live again, and I'm starting to forget who I was before the loop. Nathan Cross is just a name, a role I play as the driver, the witness, the anchor keeping Millerton Falls real. Sometimes I see other trucks on the road between passes, other drivers who haven't been caught yet, and I try to wave them away, try to signal danger, but they never understand. They just drive through, counting up their own passes, becoming their own anchors. The town needs witnesses. It feeds on observation, on being perceived. Every traveler who drives through adds to its realness, makes the loop more stable, more permanent. We're all trapped here now. The original residents cycling through their day, the travelers cycling through their witnessing, feeding each other's loops, creating a stable paradox that can't collapse. I've stopped trying to leave, stopped looking for exits. I just drive through Millerton Falls, observing, recording, making it real. Sharon serves me coffee. The sheriff nods recognition. The woman in the blue dress cries and waves and falls from the roof and waves again. And I drive on, circling forever. The only thing moving forward through a town that only moves in circles. Sometimes I think I see the edge of something larger. Other towns caught in other loops, other drivers cycling through other impossible routes. All of us threaded through America's back roads like pearls on a string of frozen time. Maybe all the small towns are like this. Maybe we've all been driving through the same few places our entire lives, just experiencing them at different temporal angles, never realizing we're trapped in loops that feel like progress. Route 2 stretches ahead, always presenting Millerton Falls at the next horizon. I'll drive through it again in 37 minutes, and again after that, and again. I am the witness, I am the anchor, I am the loop made manifest. And I've been driving these roads for 31 years. Story 8, the weight that increased. My trailer was empty when I left Memphis, and 30 pounds heavier at the first way station, and 300 pounds heavier at the second. And by the fourth way station, the inspectors couldn't open the trailer doors because something with substantial mass was pressing against them from inside, and when they finally got them open, there was nothing there, just empty space that weighed 17,000 pounds. "What are you hauling?" the inspector asked, and I said nothing because the manifest was blank, and he said, "Nothing weighs 17,000 pounds. And I said, "Now it does." Carla Brennan, 43 years old, flatbed and dry van specialist, hauling commercial freight for 18 years. September 9th, 2022, I picked up an empty 53-foot trailer from a depot in Memphis, headed for a pickup in Albuquerque. Completely empty. I'd walked through it with the depot manager, confirmed no forgotten cargo, no damage, just bare walls and a swept floor. The scale at depot exit showed my weight at 31,000 pounds, truck, trailer, fuel, me. Normal bobtail weight. First way station was in Arkansas, 67 miles into the trip. Routine check. I rolled onto the scale, waited for the readout. 31,032 pounds, 32 pounds heavier than departure. The weighmaster frowned at his screen, waved me to secondary inspection. Your manifest says empty trailer, he said, a guy in his 50s with the bored professionalism of someone who'd checked 10,000 trucks. But you're gaining weight. Step out, let's take a look. We walked around the trailer together. Sealed doors, no visible damage, everything standard. He opened the doors. Empty. Completely, obviously, empty. Bright afternoon light illuminated the entire interior. No cargo, no pallets, no forgotten items, just bare space. Weird, he muttered, checking his paperwork. Scale must be miscalibrated. You're good to go. I closed the doors, got back on the road, but something felt wrong. The trailer was pulling differently, heavier, like I'd picked up a small load. I checked my mirrors compulsively, half expecting to see cargo that hadn't been there before. Nothing, just my empty trailer riding normal. Second weigh station was in Oklahoma, 214 miles further. I rolled onto the scale, 31,307 pounds. 275 pounds heavier than the first station. My stomach dropped. This weighmaster was less friendly. Ma'am, your weight is increasing along your route. That's consistent with illegal pickup or unreported cargo. I need to inspect your trailer thoroughly. Two inspectors went through the trailer with flashlights, checking corners, testing the floor for hidden compartments, looking for any explanation. They found nothing because there was nothing to find. The trailer was empty, but it weighed 307 pounds more than it had in Memphis. Step on the scale, the senior inspector said to me. I did. 143 pounds. Same as always. He had me get in my truck cab, check the weight. 18,500 standard Kenworth tractor weight. He was adding numbers on his tablet, face confused. Your trailer weighs 12,800 pounds, he said. That's impossible. 53-foot dry van trailers weigh between 10 and 12,000 pounds empty. You're showing nearly 13,000. And that's not accounting for the 300 pounds you've gained since Memphis. He looked at me with suspicion. You picking up cargo off the books? Drug smuggling? No. I was offended and frightened in equal measure. I haven't stopped except for fuel and bathrooms. I haven't picked up anything. The trailer is empty. You can see it's empty. He could. They all could. But empty or not, it was gaining weight, and no one could explain how. They held me for 43 minutes, checking logs, calling my company, verifying my route. Everything was legal, documented, clean. Eventually, they let me go, but the senior inspector's last words were ominous. Next weigh station will probably send you to a DOT inspection facility. This isn't normal. Something's wrong with your rig. I drove faster, hoping to reach Albuquerque before another weigh station, before the weight increased further. But physics was against me. The trailer was pulling heavier now, noticeably affecting my acceleration, my braking. I could feel the mass behind me, substantial and growing, even though every time I checked the trailer it was still empty. Third weigh station was in Texas, outside Amarillo. I considered bypassing it, but the signs made clear that was illegal. I rolled onto the scale with dread. 33,900 pounds, 2,869 pounds heavier than departure. I hadn't stopped, hadn't picked up anything, and I'd gained nearly 3,000 pounds of mass that didn't exist. The Texas inspectors weren't polite. They treated me like a criminal from the moment they read the scale. 4 of them surrounded my truck, hands on sidearms, ordering me out. They went through everything, my cab, my personal belongings, the trailer, every panel and door and compartment. One of them climbed inside the trailer with a tape measure and calculator, measuring interior dimensions, calculating cubic volume. It's smaller, he said after 20 minutes. Interior dimensions don't match exterior dimensions. You're short by about 60 cubic feet. There's hidden space somewhere. But there wasn't. They removed interior panels, checked the ceiling, examined the floor. No hidden compartments, no cargo, no explanation. The trailer was exactly what it appeared to be, an empty 53-foot box. But it was shorter on the inside than the outside by 60 cubic feet, and that impossible space was gaining weight. "We're impounding this trailer," the senior inspector said. "This is beyond our scope. DOT and FBI need to look at this." I spent 6 hours in a Texas holding facility while they processed paperwork and made calls. They were professional but firm. I wasn't under arrest, but I wasn't free to go, and they were keeping my trailer. My company was furious, threatening lawsuits, demanding explanations I couldn't provide. How do you explain that empty space gains weight? That interior dimensions are smaller than exterior? That reality is violating conservation of mass in your trailer? They released me with a rental trailer around midnight, told me my original trailer would be transported to a federal facility for analysis. I started driving toward Albuquerque, 280 miles behind schedule, exhausted and frightened. The rental trailer was certified empty, pre-weighed, documented. Normal. Except 40 miles down the road, I felt it pulling heavier. The same sensation, the same impossible weight accumulation. I pulled over at a truck stop, walked around the rental trailer in the dark, heart pounding. It looked fine, sealed, empty, according to the manifest. But when I opened the doors and shined my flashlight inside, I saw something that hadn't been there before. A shadow, not cast by anything. Just present. A pool of darkness in the center of the trailer floor, roughly circular, about 3 feet in diameter. I approached carefully, aiming my flashlight at it. The shadow didn't respond to light, didn't fade. It was darkness made substance, somehow solid and void simultaneously. I touched it. My hand went through the floor, not breaking through. The floor was still there, still solid metal, but my hand passed through both the floor and the shadow into space that shouldn't exist beneath the trailer. Cold air rushed out, carrying that smell. Ozone and flowers, the same smell I'd heard other drivers mention in late-night CB conversations when they told stories they claimed were bullshit but weren't. I jerked my hand back. The shadow was growing, spreading across the floor, expanding. It had been 3 feet in diameter. Now it was 4, 5, 6, consuming the trailer floor inch by inch, and wherever it spread, the trailer gained weight. I could feel it sinking on its suspension, feel the hitch pulling down harder against my fifth wheel. I ran to my cab, tried to unhitch the trailer. The fifth wheel release wouldn't move, jammed or frozen or held by something stronger than mechanics. I was locked to the trailer, locked to the expanding shadow, locked to the weight that was building toward some critical mass. The truck groaned under increasing load, suspension compressing, tires flattening slightly. My CB crackled with static, then voices. Other drivers who'd encountered the shadow maybe, or echoes of my own future self warning backward through time. Don't haul the empty. The nothing weighs everything. It's gaining mass from somewhere else, somewhere it shouldn't come from. You're carrying the weight of a place that doesn't exist. When it reaches critical mass, it'll become real, and you'll become the nothing it replaced. I tried to drive away, but the truck wouldn't move. 17,000 pounds of weight the Texas inspector had measured in my original trailer. I was past that now, well past. 20,000, 30,000. The shadow had filled the entire trailer floor and was climbing the walls. Darkness spreading, and with each square foot it covered, the weight increased exponentially. The truck's frame began to bend. Metal shrieked. Tires exploded under pressure. I was being crushed into the pavement by the weight of nothing, by absence made massive, by void given substance. I fumbled for my phone, tried to call 911, but the phone showed no service. Not no signal, the concept of service had become irrelevant. I was in a bubble of space where normal physical laws were suspended, replaced by rules that allowed empty trailers to gain infinite weight. The shadow touched my cab. I felt it pass through the back wall, felt cold darkness entering my space, and where it touched my seat, my supplies, my body, it removed something fundamental. Not physical mass, something deeper. Presence, reality, the quality of existing. I watched my hands fade, becoming translucent, then transparent, then gone. Not severed, not dissolved, simply ceasing to be observed, ceasing to matter. I was being replaced by the shadow, by the weight, by the nothing that needed substance. My consciousness remained, but untethered, floating in darkness that was all-consuming, that was everywhere and nowhere. That was the space between spaces where uncreated things waited to be born. The truck collapsed completely, crushed flat by infinite weight concentrated in zero space. I felt it happen from inside and outside simultaneously. The metal folding, the cargo area compressing to molecular thickness, the shadow reaching critical density. And then it stopped being shadow and became something real. Something that had always existed in potential but was now manifested, physical, undeniable. A place. That's what the weight had been. A place that didn't exist anywhere, pushing through my trailer to become real. Geography forcing itself into reality by accumulating weight, by gaining substance, by crushing the existing world enough to make room for its own existence. And I was the conduit, the vessel, the unfortunate doorway through which impossible space was born. I reformed somewhere. Not Earth, somewhere else. A landscape of empty highways stretching through void, way stations staffed by things that looked like inspectors but weren't. Trucks hauling nothing that weighed everything. Other drivers were there, phantoms of people who'd carried the shadow, who'd been doorways for places to manifest through. We drove endless routes through non-geography, feeling our trailers gain weight, knowing eventually we'd collapse again, become conduits again, birth more impossible places into existence. Carla Brennan died on September 9, 2022 in Texas, crushed under the weight of her own trailer. That's what the official report says. They found my truck compressed to 18 inches of tangled metal, my body unrecoverable, and they blamed equipment failure, metal fatigue, catastrophic structural collapse. The rental trailer was never found. It had gained enough weight to stop existing in normal space, to phase through reality into somewhere else, and it took me with it. I'm still driving, still hauling empty trailers that gain weight, still stopping at way stations where inspectors see the increasing numbers and ask questions I can't answer. And sometimes, rarely, I see other drivers here, real ones who just arrived, who died under the weight of nothing, and I try to warn them. Don't haul the empty. It gets heavier. It's always getting heavier, and eventually you become the nothing it's replacing. They never listen, because I'm not really there. I'm just weight, just shadow, just the absence that's learning to be presence, and the trailers keep getting heavier.